All right, we're back. I'm John Belizaire, CEO of Soluna, and today I'm with my two colleagues, Dip, CTO of Soluna also, and Phil, who is head of business development and finance and everything else. Dip, it's great to have you back, man.
Good to be back. Miss you guys.
Dip just came back from Mexico.
Yep.
How was that, man? I heard like you were meeting with the president, the ambassador, secretaries. You had billboards.
It was good.
Unbelievable.
Teaching a lot of young kids how to start a company. So it's fun watching that process go from 0 to 1.
That must have been cool. How old are these kids? Like college age?
Yeah, mostly like 3rd and 4th years.
Did you ever check yourself when you're teaching and you're like, oh no, we got to go back to the drawing board with Soluna?
No. Luckily,
you're like, hey, you're going through this. You're going through the don'ts list, and you're like, oh no.
Yeah,
we did that.
But no, I think we're following the process, which helped me actually use Soluna as an example many times. During the process to show that, hey, we're doing this too. It's not just for good looks.
So you used our business plan as an example.
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So while you were away, I had the opportunity to interview the ambassador. So I've been hanging out with the ambassador a lot. That guy is unbelievable, smooth. You'll see him on one of our podcasts if you've been watching our podcasts. And one of the topics we covered in the podcast was our core values as a company, the 3 that we've talked about. And the subject of this podcast is going to be about that, about those values. Just to start out, I want to set the stage for what those values are. The first, of course, is transparency. The second is focus on renewable power, 100% renewable energy. And the third is supporting local economies. And we're going to talk a lot about that in this session. But before we do, we should talk about what are core values. Did you talk about core values with the
of course
startup group? Why don't you start?
Yeah, so when I describe core values to the teams at the startup boot camp, it was more about the reason that team stays together. Even if an idea changes, it's the problem that you're trying to solve, and then the way that you go about solving it, how you govern it, is to me how a team bonds. Right? If you're aligned on those core values, then you're aligned on how you want to achieve this goal, regardless of what the idea is, which is really nice because values I think are what keep us going. Times of difficulty.
Right. No, I liken it to DNA. I wrote this blog post last year. It was about how to hire, and it was all focused on DNA. And you're a different guy than I am. Phil's a different guy than I am. We're all different people because we have unique DNA. And companies are the same way. Mm-hmm. And core values are a way to sort of define what makes the company unique.
Yep.
And they're immutable. Once your DNA is kind of locked in, it's set, right? And so there's lots of ways to look at it. What's your perspective on what core values are, Phil?
So I come from a little bit of a different background, finance and economics, and working in finance for the last 5 years. Values are something that people in finance talk about, but historically, maybe not everyone or not many have done a good job at practicing them.
Right.
I think what's been very interesting for me is my view, or long-held view, is that a company's number one job is to return capital and provide returns to its equity holders. And then if you do a good job at that, many other things fall in line. You need to do that ethically, and you need to do that within the bounds of the law. And there are superstructures like the government and other societal norms that make decisions about what's ethical and what's not ethical.
Right.
Within those bounds, you just need to do the best you can.
Right.
What I've found with Soluna, and never having worked in a startup before, is frequently when you're trying to get a company off the ground, there will be distractions and there will be obstacles. And both of those, how you deal with them, many people could come at it at a different way. And that can get very challenging when you've got a team of 8 or 9 people. You're trying to move the ball forward, and we didn't expect this, we didn't see this coming. How do we go about solving this problem? I don't know. You can go back to your values, and you can that can be an objective function for decision making. So
Right.
what's been very helpful for me, at least, is this first value, which is be transparent. You know, oh, I don't know about this, or I don't agree with this person says, or I don't think that makes sense. And, you know, how do I deal with the politics of these people who are coming together? We're all working long hours. Don't know how to deal with it. It was like, be transparent. Say what you think and get it out there. And,
Right.
you know, we're all working for the same goal at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It makes it a lot easier.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a lot more about our values and how we approach it, and how we came up with the set of values that we've put together. But before we do, I wanted to sort of just chat about companies that we might know and their core values, just to kind of level set. And honestly, everyone points to the best brands in the world. But there's a reason why they're the best brand in the world,
exactly.
is because they've got great value. So I pulled them up. Let me read a couple of these and just get you guys to respond a little bit. The first one is Amazon's core values, and I'm only going to read one of the set probably. And the number one value that they have is customer obsession. I'm an Amazon Prime member.
Same.
I love Amazon.
Same.
I don't know what I would do without
They
it.
can raise the price, and I stay.
I still stay. They raise it. They do raise it.
Don't
by
tell
the
them
way.
that, Dip.
Yeah.
Do not tell them
They
that.
know.
I know.
believe me.
They already know. But it says leaders start with the customer and work backwards. That's one of their core values. So very customer centric. I had a friend of mine interview with them, and they explained to her that they teach their people that anyone you could be talking to, in fact, someone coming in for an interview could be an Amazon customer.
Right.
So you got to treat them the same way. But more importantly, when you start with building a product, a new service, you sort of think about it from the customer's perspective. Here's another one, Apple's core values. We believe that we're on the face of the earth to make great products. That's why they exist, making great products. I think I probably sold more Apple products than Apple has, because I think they make great products. And we believe in simple, not complex.
I love it. Yeah.
So that's one. And then I'm going to do one more, and then we'll shift to ours. I think Google is the other. Focus on the user and all else will follow, kind of similar to the Amazon customer one. And one that I kind of like is fast is better than slow.
Nice.
You ever notice, like, when you start doing a Google search or anything like that, the thing it's thinking for you, because they're trying to get you to the answer as quickly as possible. So it's like core to the way they approach things. The other thing I would say is, like, core values are immutable things. They're the foundational elements, like you talked about, that sort of help you sell decisions long term. But more importantly, they're not strategy pieces. They don't talk about how you do business. They don't talk about how you're going to approach your business model, revenue, and so forth. So when we were talking about Soluna, and I became involved in the project, we had to evaluate the blockchain ecosystem and everything that was going on in the ecosystem. Scams, lack of clarity. You look at some of these projects, and it's hard to sort of understand what they're doing and what's going on in there. And we took a step back and started to, I was trying to get the team to, rather than think all the way to the point where we're trying to think about how to build wind farms, let's start to shape the DNA of what this company is going to look like. And what we're going to be doing is developing a very innovative company. We're a blockchain computing company that owns its own power. Have you ever heard of that before? Well, you heard it for the first time here. That's what we're doing. And so that's a very ambitious thing to do. And we're talking about gigawatts worth of power that we're going to produce to power, these computing centers. So we started thinking through a set of core values to kind of help shape the role we're going to make and play, the role we're going to play in the world. So let's talk about those values: transparency, 100% renewable energy, and taking a very positive role in local economies. So let's start with the first one. You want to take that one, Phil?
Sure, but before we do that, if you don't mind,
Yeah.
let me ask about, as we're creating our identity, you said it's not a strategy piece.
Yeah.
To some extent, it is marketing, because what you are doing is you're deciding this is who our company is in terms of how it interacts with not shareholders, but stakeholders. So the people inside the ecosystem, everybody you touch. I think one thing that's interesting about cryptocurrencies and other blockchain technologies is a core value about them is the future technology. It's hard to articulate, but being on the cutting edge of distributed autonomous systems. So in your mind, as we created these values, are they specific responses to problems that blockchain has had, like scams?
Well, yeah. I mean, when I was looking at it and I started drafting, and a core values, by the way, when you first shape them, they're foundational elements, and over time they might change. Some are aspirational, that sort of thing. But in my view, we had to first define how are we going to be different than every other company that's in the blockchain ecosystem today. And what I was concerned about when I looked at current participants in the ecosystem was that not everyone was focused on the right things. Many of these projects were focused on using, this as a way to raise capital in an efficient fashion. Some were focused on just trying to make a quick buck. It wasn't clear that they were really trying to make a positive dent in the universe. And so I started saying, how is Soluna, how is this company that I'm going to be involved in going to be different? And so, yes, it was to some extent a response to what was happening in the space right now. And one of those was the fact that there were scams and there was a lot of opacity in what these projects were doing. The community really didn't have a sense of whether the promises that were made were current. And as a result, it has spawned a whole series of lawsuits and all sorts of exposure to transparency eventually comes out. One of my relatives used to say that what happens in the dark will eventually come in the light.
That's right. That's right.
And so stuff's starting to come into the light now. Yeah. So our strategy was, why don't we start from day one doing the opposite of that? Right. Being very transparent and being open about what we're doing. That's what the blockchain ecosystem is all about, right? I mean, that's what we're trying to create, a new ecosystem that's going to change the world and make it more open and transparent. And so our core values as a business should better be about that too. Right. And
I think to that extent, what's really interesting to me is cryptocurrency, blockchain. You go anywhere, people might say Bitcoin has no value or it's not going to last. Yeah. But nobody's going to tell you blockchain isn't important. Right. The SEC has come out and said, we think this is internet, like the next internet. Yeah. This is going to be very revolutionary. And so that core value that so many of these other cryptocurrency companies have, or these other ICOs have, of being on the cutting edge, of being that step function towards the next piece into technological process, is very exciting. But there's these whole host of uglies that have come up. And so one way you can look at our values is responding to each of those specifically. So, being transparent is the opposite of how many ICOs that are scams have operated. Right. Supporting local economies. Some people have accused mining of being extractive, right? We're just sucking down your power and then see you later. We're Bitcoin billionaires. And what's the last one? 100% renewable energy. Same thing though, right?
I'll say this, sure, but if this company wasn't transparent, I wouldn't be here. Right. Right. So it starts maybe with reacting to the market, but the way I saw it was there was no way I was getting my hands on anything blockchain related unless from the very core, the whole team was transparent. Because when I ran EcoVent, right, my old company, transparency was one of our values as well. Because to me, a team needs to understand what's going on with each other. Right. And I call it the no fester policy, right? Building on what you said earlier about if there's an issue, bring it up. But I think the transparency to do it correctly is very, very hard. And a lot of companies use that word as a marketing tool. But I think that we are going to live it. And to me, I would expect our users or our customer stakeholders, if we're not transparent, to call us out, right? Because to me, I think it's baked in, like John said earlier, to the DNA of what we are, right?
And I think that's very important too, because so all right, so we're saying here's some things that are wrong and here's how we're going to go about approaching them. But if you do it right and you build the right set of values, that translates into the right culture,
Exactly.
which translates into the right talent. Because nowadays, especially in the tech sector, there's way more demand than there is supply in terms of talent. And so people are getting to pick where they want to work.
That's right.
And it's not just about having food courts and having somebody do your pressure
pong.
shirts and ping pong and cold brew on tap and all that stuff. It's about, I want to work with smart people and cool people. And, and the way you do that,
a company is making a real difference, and that shares values that you share.
Mm-hmm.
And if you care about these things, to his point, I wouldn't work for a company that's not transparent, because I value that. Right?
Agreed. 100%.
So being open, and we've approached that as a team, just the way we're working together. And so if we can't be transparent with each other, there's no way we're going to be transparent with our community, investors, people involved in our infrastructure play in the ecosystem. So I think that's extremely important. Let's talk about support for local economies. Yeah. That's not something you normally hear in a startup, set of core values, unless of course you're a global nonprofit and that's part of your focus. You're gonna you're gonna be providing clean water to developing countries, that sort of thing.
Typical tech startup,
right?
Yeah.
You don't hear that in a tech
exactly.
startup. If I go back to those examples I was talking about, you don't see support local economies in there. So what's that about from your perspective? I think it's an important one for us. For
me, I mean, I'm from Kenya, right? I'm an immigrant, and I always wonder, and I was just in Mexico City working with incredibly bright students, and it's to me, it's genius is everywhere. The spirit of entrepreneurship, the spirit of want to help is everywhere. And we have here in America more tools, more coaching, more atmosphere to help us grow. And, for us to make part of our company's values, how we're going to make decisions, going into other places and providing that same level of, not necessarily like how to do business, but more a spirit of being able to dream big and think of big solutions and then give them the training and the knowledge that we have learned. From a coaching perspective, I think is great. And from a business perspective, it helps too, because we don't have to bring in expats to every country we want to work on. Right?
That's right.
But for me, it was all about helping other people like me. If my grandfather wasn't courageous enough to leave Africa and come to America, I might still be there.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And who knows whether I would add the same value to the world if I wasn't given all the... There's no way I would have. The education I've received in this country is extremely unique. And so that's why it was important to me. It was able to give back beyond just, yes, we're helping the earth with the green energy. Mm-hmm. Yes, we're helping ourselves and the blockchain community by being transparent. But this actually helps the people on the ground, which is so
I agree with that. I mean, I think you have a couple of ways you can operate as a business, right? We could go to this incredible location in Morocco that has some of the best wind resources in the world. This amazing site that we have that allows us to generate gigawatts of energy.
Right.
And we could fly a plane into that location every day and bring resources from here in the United States and send them over there, and extract as much of that energy resource to produce computing and revenue and so forth. And it would probably be great and generate returns for our investors, but it wouldn't be the right thing. Like that, that movie, I'll date myself, do the right thing.
That was a good movie. Don't date me. That was a classic, man.
With Radio Raheem and everything. Yeah, that's cool. Anyway, so, you got to do the right thing. So doing the right thing means not just going in, getting everything, every pound of flesh you can, and then leaving nothing behind. And by the way, most mining companies that have become nomadic companies are essentially taking that approach, right? They're going into these places that have cheap energy, trying to extract as much of that energy as possible, maximize, but not really thinking about what value, what positive dent they want to make on that location. We're taking the opposite approach. Again, going back to responding to how we want to be different. We don't want to be seen as that. We want to develop the best integrated, the best vertically integrated company we can for the blockchain, because we're going to be the best blockchain ecosystem platform that's ever been created. But at the same time, we want to create a whole army of blockchain experts, blockchain technicians, because we want to power the ecosystem as well. And why not start with the incredible resource that the Moroccans have in their education system, their academia, incredibly bright people that have lots of training, and we can bring that expertise there. So we're gonna focus on building a whole series of academic infrastructure and training and programs to build a whole team of people over there and add it to the ecosystem.
Yeah, let me add on to that too. So if you compare a crypto mining operation to a real mining operation, a physical mining operation, or maybe an oil and gas project, one thing that you hear about in economic literature is this idea of the resource curse, which is that countries that are rich in natural resources often do not themselves become rich, because what happens is you have a few players centralized with a lot of resources trying to get into the country, and they're aggregating the economic power relative to everybody else's wealth. And so they can influence the system of laws, they can influence rule of law and the way they're treated versus the way others are treated, and that prevents much other types of economic progress. So I think it's really interesting that, as John said, this isn't a charity. We're not doing this just to help people.
Right.
We do intend to give great returns to our shareholders, and they should demand it. But also we're going to measure our success in how we change the local economy. One thing that's really exciting about this operation, as opposed to a physical resource mining operation, is, real, like coal, whatever. It's dangerous and it's low skill labor. We're talking about tech jobs.
That's a really good
We're
point.
talking about IT. We're talking about
cybersecurity.
We're talking about high-tech energy construction.
Exactly.
So this is not the same level of types of jobs that we're bringing to the local economy. So that's really exciting.
It's a whole step change. Absolutely. What about renewable energy? That other interesting core value that you don't hear any tech companies talking about. Like, you don't hear like these new, web-based companies or SaaS companies. We're going to be a SaaS company focused on 100% renewable energy.
Yeah, it doesn't.
You don't really hear that. No. So why is that a core value for us? And I if I were to start, I think when you start with the resource that we have, and obviously the resource that we have is this site where we can develop an incredible wind site. So that's by definition, 100% renewable. But we are a global company. We're going to be doing this all around the world, and we could be doing it by focusing on whatever is the cheapest, energy resource in that particular location, right? And if it happens to be coal in Montana, I guess we could do that.
We could,
but that's not what we're doing. No. Again, because we want to make a positive dent in the universe, right? I mean, what's your guys' perspective on that?
Same. I mean, it's I'll say the same thing as transparency. If it wasn't about generating a lot of green energy for the planet, I wouldn't be as excited about this job. There's money to be made. There's lots of things to do, but at the end of the day, what we're doing is finding a way to bring on. Yeah. Exactly. We're finding a way to bring on a ton of green energy.
Yeah. And 10 years from now, 20 years from now, it shouldn't be that we turn on a bunch of coal mines. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And to me, the earth is sick. And this is a way to help make it better.
Yeah, I think the other thing that excites me is, our business model is a very unique business model today. Yeah. We're integrating computing and energy into one business, and what that creates is the opportunity to, for the first time, create a business model that supports the case for investing in renewable energy. Mm-hmm. And people ask me, well, what if somebody replicates that? Like, actually, I hope they replicate it.
The Earth wins.
Because the Earth wins. Like, now you're going to have, all sorts of renewable energy, solar, wind, and other types of geothermal around the world that are driven by a business model like this that will probably create the largest increase in renewable power that man has ever seen. That's kind of cool. I got some goosebumps on this.
I know. I'm so fired up.
And if we return some pretty high returns for our investors in the process, that's great, and we're going to do that. But it's even more exciting to create that for the world.
What about, John? What about criticism of cryptocurrency itself consuming too much power? How do we think about that?
Yeah, so that's a very good point. And we just have a few more minutes, but I think we want to touch on this because it's important. So what's our role in addressing that? The first thing we're doing is we are adding a resource that is renewable. So we're not only generating our own power, but we're doing it in an ethical way.
Yep.
But at the same time, it's one might argue that we're adding renewable energy that just does nothing for the world, right? But that's not true, because over time, we think that the blockchain ecosystem will not just be about cryptocurrency.
Right.
It's going to be about a whole series of distributed applications powering the world, and it's going to need this resource to power that computing and therefore energy.
Right.
But also at the same time, you look at the total pie of energy around the world, and you look at the green portion. It's actually quite small, and through this process, we'd be adding a considerable increase in that energy.
Right.
What's your thought on that, Phil?
So I agree. I agree that right now, proof of work, which I guess we'll probably get into in another podcast. But
yeah, or we'll do that in the blockchain podcast.
Yeah, proof of work is computationally intensive,
right?
Which means that it's energy intensive,
right?
And some people are saying, well, there's other ways to secure a cryptocurrency network. You don't need to consume so much power, and they're working on that.
Right. So that's proof of stake.
So that's proof of stake.
Yep.
And so they're saying, and this is a much more sustainable way to run a blockchain.
Right.
And what I think is that at the end of the day, it's going to be a mix of both. Maybe Bitcoin stays proof of work, and other currencies go to proof of stake, and you'll see a step function decrease in terms of how much computing power the existing structure needs. But then there's going to be this whole host of other applications,
right, that are going to need tremendous amount of computing power.
That are computing intensive, very
That's right.
computing intensive.
That's right. And if computing intensive, that means you need power.
Yeah.
The huge data centers powering, some of the companies we referred to earlier about their core values are also powered by energy. And in fact, they've vertically integrated to some extent, because they understand that that's the way to deliver a positive effect on the energy signature. Well, that's all we have for today, folks. Thanks for joining us on this podcast about core values. Follow us on Telegram, Soluna Blockchain, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks very much.